Call the meeting to order. Please rise and let's salute the flag.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Certification of compliance.
The time, date, and location of this meeting was published in the Asbury Park Press and posted on the bulletin board in the office of the Township of Lakewood at least 48 hours in advance. The public has the right to attend this meeting, and reasonable comprehensive minutes of this meeting will be available for public inspection. This meeting meets the criteria of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Roll call, please.
Still getting set.
No problem. Thank you.
Mr. Fuentes.
Here.
Mr. Garfield. Mr. Stern.
Here.
Mr. Sable.
Here.
Mr. Flansbaum. Mr. Herzl.
Here.
Mr. Isaacson. Mr. Renner.
Here.
Mr. Meyer.
Here.
And Mr. Committeeman Ackerman.
Here. Okay, now there's a missing. Gotta check the recording tomorrow.
I have it here, so I can keep an eye on it. And it does sound like the new speakers are wonderful. I can hear them myself.
I just want to say Mr. Flansbaum is not here tonight. Condolences to him. His grandfather passed away. He wanted to be here. So, condolences. Ali, any changes to the agenda? I can make sure people are here.
Yes. We do have an application listed as number 3 on the agenda, SP 2310, the park at Lakewood LLC. I'll let Mr. Jackson explain that we're carrying that application.
Yes, what's the date again?
March 5th.
That matter is going to be carried into March 5th, so if anyone's here on SP 2310, Park at Lakewood LLC, be advised that matter has been adjourned and will be heard on March 5th, 2019, 6 o'clock, this meeting hall. There will be no further notices.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ordinance.
Yes. Did you want to start with resolutions?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
We did have one change with the resolutions as well. Item number 3, SP 1948, Free Chief Orco's Time have requested to carry to a later date. We're still working out the details on those. We have 2 other resolutions that were sent to the board at the end of last week, but I did have some questions on them with respect to the first one, which is SP 2301. It's a site plan for a school. There was concern from the board about school buses not being permitted to drop off, pick up, or even enter the property, and I didn't see that reflected in the resolution. I wasn't sure if that's something the board wanted to add in the language.
That's the one that we had our opposition on the buses going to the property.
Yes.
Okay. I think they were supposed to be on the resolution. I think
Objections at the end of the resolution.
I think you testified that we're going to have 2 vans coming to this side.
Okay. So I will have Mr. Jackson's office add a line about no vans will be servicing this property rather than school buses, which are not permitted on the site.
Can it be approved tonight or with that line?
I believe that would be fine if the board is satisfactory with the simple sentence as to the single.
Mr. Jack, is that okay tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so I would ask for a motion on that resolution.
Motion.
Mr. Meyer.
I'm sorry, let me let you know who can and can't vote on that. I forgot. Mr. Fuentes wasn't here for that meeting, and Mr. Ackerman was not here. Everyone else can vote on that.
So Mr. Meyer moves, Mr. Sable second, all in favor? Aye.
Okay. And the second SP 2305, I believe, was acceptable. It's a major site plan for 2 office buildings.
Okay, have a motion? Moved, second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Other ordinances.
We have an ordinance up for, we have ordinance and then correspondence. The first correspondence item is SP correspondence and the plans.
Hold on 1 second.
John, you have a copy here as well. This staff right here is the contents of John.
Who's here on that application?
In the past, John has indicated that correspondence should stand alone. We don't typically request or accept testimony under those items, so it should be self-explanatory. We're looking for the board's concession that the change is not a major change to the application, which would necessitate an amended approval.
Yeah, I believe the request is related to a change in the fence height. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
There's no site plan issues from that perspective.
There are a copy of the minutes there. There was originally, I believe it was proposed to be 6 foot. And one of the neighbors in particular wanted an 8 foot. When they revised the plans during resolution compliance, they showed 8 foot around the whole property.
It's supposed to be
But
only 8.
it was only supposed to be along that one neighborhood
Okay, no
requested
problem.
the 8 foot.
Okay. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Sable moves. Mr. Meyer second. All in favor?
I'm gonna abstain on that one, just because I wasn't here for that actual application.
Thank you. There's a second correspondence item right underneath that. It's a plan that stands by itself. It's a large plan labeled as block 1086, lot 20. This is a correspondence request that I had received and had circulated to the board professionals. I believe Mr. Jackson spoke with Mr. Flannery about this one and found it acceptable to put on the agenda. Again, given that it's correspondence, it's considered a matter of regular business. It doesn't require notice. And I believe that it's okay that it's not listed on the agenda since it is just a correspondence item.
I don't have anything right now.
The changes, it was approved with the,
No problem, thank
Record
you.
reflect Mr. Sable stepping down.
it was approved with the second building. I have the 2 plans up, the one on the left shows the second building, that was approved. What the applicant wants to do at this point is not build that building. He wants to extend the second story floor in the existing 2-story building, keep the same parking determination, and put the parking in the back. So it's not adding any building, it's not adding anything that the neighbors are going to see. It's minor in nature. The applicant met with Terry and Ally to say, can we just do this administratively? And they said they'd rather the board look at it first.
Is there any change to the shape of the building from outside?
No.
Everything is internal.
Yes.
But you're adding a new parking lot, right?
We're adding parking in the back where there was a building.
So the only reason you buy the board is to move the parking over there.
Yes.
Everything else is internal, which is the building.
Yes.
Did I discuss this and say that it was okay to do administratively? I don't recall.
I spoke with Ally, and Ally said she'd asked you, she's waiting for your reply. With everything else going on, I don't know your reply.
Yeah, I don't think I did, because, I mean, I think that, so you're putting a new, isn't that an amended site plan to add a whole new parking lot? You have to look at the drainage and the circulation and everything.
Typically in Lakewood, you're allowed to add parking, as long as you're not violating any requirements and as long as you're staying within the parameters of the drainage. So this is fits within that. Instead of having a building there, we're gonna have parking.
So your argument is that this is not a material change, because you can get that by
Yes.
getting the zoning officer to approve it?
Yes.
What do you think about that?
We're okay with it if the board and the zoning officer are okay.
Yeah, I would definitely, you have to get the zoning officer.
Well,
What if the zoning officer-
obviously, the zoning officer has to concur, but the first step would be making sure the board agrees with my opinion that it's not a material change and we don't need a new site plan.
I don't know, I think that's a tough one to say that's not a material change. The 2 plans right and left look like night and day.
They both have development in this area. The only thing that's different is right here. Everything else remains the same. And right here, instead of having a building, you're having parking, which, to me, is a benefit rather than any detriment or anything that creates a material change.
What's on either side of the, what's on either side?
There's,
Where the building would have been.
There's residential developments on each side. So the residential development on this side, we see the same parking area they were coming to. The residential development here, instead of having a building, is gonna have parking, and they had parking anyway. There was parking all the way to the back.
Where's the parking configuration shown on the left side?
On the left side, the parking lot comes down behind the building and mirrors the parking lot that comes down here. The difference is in this area, there's an extra row of parking. And we're choosing not to build that building, which isn't there today.
I mean, the only thing I can see about this as opposed to doing an application, maybe somebody who lives back there would rather have a building that's less impact of cars coming and going, lights, doors, car alarms, activity, as opposed to a commercial building where it's, people are building over the windows.
So the existing site does have, the cars and the activity back there. That's an area that's already existing, and they already have the cars and the activity back there. This is just striking the parking area and having it, rather than be haphazard, it's having striped parking, and again, moving the building area inside, expanding it, the second story area of an already two-story building.
And where's the downside of coming in with an application for the next site plan and noticing the neighbors?
The downside is that the neighborhood needs this project badly. The project will be slowed down by doing this. It's a shopping center. It's an area where the women walk, so they can't drive to any other shopping. And the neighbors have said that they're in a hurry to have this, and rather than delay it by months, because it would certainly be delaying it by months, or something that, in my opinion, is not a material change, and hopefully the board agrees it's not a material change.
Has this been noticed?
No. Well, there's no, yeah, there's.
Basically, what they do, they take off the building and they're leaving park or striping park.
Striping parking, making the parking a, now.
Just not moving the building, right, it's just the parking.
Yes.
Is there the total square footage going down or staying the same?
The total square footage is going down, the parking demand is staying roughly the same, and the parking demand would be balanced to match what was there originally, and it's a school and shopping center which is being proposed, so it balances the school, the retail, and the parking demand stays the same as if we had built this building, but it's being handled in a different configuration.
Did you say you're adding another story to one of the buildings?
So it's an existing two-story building. We're expanding the two-story area. It used to be a tennis center, so it had a very high ceiling. There is some second-story area on it now, just expanding that so that.
Are you enlarging the exterior of the building?
No, they're not. They're not changing the configuration.
You're just building on the interior wall?
Yes.
This is existing. This is existing, that's the first.
That's correct. That's existing. It's the old tennis center. Originally, it was a tennis center and nursery school. Right now, it's a school with some retail uses. And instead of putting a building here on this side, they want to expand
Is this here before now?
No, this stays.
This is here.
This stays, yeah. It's the same.
So the footprint stays the same?
Footprint stays the same.
So this is what goes away, and it's not as partial.
Correct.
All right, I spoke.
One at a time.
Mr. Vogt, I asked him, I said, do you think this is appropriate? I mean, isn't this a major redesign? He said the site remains the same. They're just adding parking. They're entitled to expand on this. So the question for the board is this a material change that you want to bring it back with a full application, or is this something that can be done administratively?
Mr. Jackson, I'm sorry, just to add to that, I believe that had this site not had a previous site plan approval for the addition, the existing building could apply for a site plan extension for a parking lot expansion. It would not be required to come to this board with parking.
Just go to the zoning office.
And they would just go to me for confirmation that there's less than 1,500 square foot of building addition, which in this case there would be, because it's only parking, and then they would just go for permits.
If the board were inclined to grant this on correspondence, I would just send a signal or instructions to the zoning office with the planning board's, determination that, this is
It's
not,
based on-
it's not to be influenced the zoning officer. It's not a signal to the zoning officer that, you know, that she should rule one way or the other.
My understanding is that, after the parking expansion is approved, that there are intentions for interior renovations, which would fall under the zoning board, or excuse me, the zoning officer's jurisdiction anyway. She would then look at the interior uses that are proposed in the renovation and
Make sure
confirm that
parking-
those are permitted and that there's enough parking as per the new approval to match the demand for the new
But that's
uses.
only with the zoning officer.
I just wouldn't want the zoning officer to take this as a signal from the board that it's okay. You're saying, well, it's okay with us as long as it's okay with
Mr.
you.
Jackson, you're writing if we approve it, I'm writing.
And as Ally pointed out, this applicant's actually at a disadvantage because he came in and got the site plan already. Because if it was just existing, we'd be coming in, as Ally pointed out, and saying we want a site plan exemption, and I don't think anybody would have looked at that and raised any concerns. And again, the neighbors.
Why was the site plan required?
The prior owner had different plans.
They wanted
The new owner who wants to serve the needs of the community, and we know the community there has changed in that the women walk, they need shopping within walking distance.
So why do you send the correspondence? Why don't you just send the request that Ally?
I believe since Terry's already familiar with the site, that it's simpler to have him sign off during resolution compliance, assuming the board approves the change, rather than starting a whole new procedure when they go for plot plan with the township engineer and have him review the step.
So this would be, like, when is Terry gonna
Terry will
review?
review resolution
We would
compliance.
continue compliance, I'm sorry. We would continue compliance with the revised submission if the board acts favorably and if the zoning officer says yes.
So you would check whatever
We would
circulation,
simply
whatever
continue-
additional coverage?
Exactly. It would be a change that we would continue compliance under the site plan approval and have that perfected based on the revised concept.
So Brian's not gonna get away with anything then?
That's my story, I'm sticking by
Mr.
it.
Jackson, could we make a motion to approve it, subject to the zoning officer agreeing?
Yes.
That's
If you think it's not material, if you think that it doesn't matter because they're doing the change in interior to get a permit for the parking lot anyway.
And that's what Alan is explaining, they only take more for building,
Right.
the parking lot, they don't need us.
Kind of like Mr. Flannery said, they shot themselves in the foot by the prior approval, which is in the way, and
I
then.
guess, what I'm missing in this whole process, I just don't understand. What's wrong with just submitting this plan to the federal secretary for recommendation to zoning officers? What are you starting over again?
Well, we either have to come in and ask for site plan exemption, which we're entitled to. We would ask you for site plan exemption, which is entitled to. But since there was already a site plan application, which the board looked at, your engineer looked at the drainage, he looked at all the aspects of it, he looked at the traffic, he looked at how it impacts the road. So he had seen all this. So this is actually gets more scrutiny than a site plan exemption, but it's complicated by the fact that we had a site plan approval with a building that we now don't want to build because the character and the needs of the neighborhood have changed. And the applicant is in a hurry to get the building process going so that they don't have to walk as far as that part of the.
Basically, it may be more complicated, maybe less complicated, but if you come with for an exemption, you're starting the process from scratch and you have to
Yes.
submit new plans and everything.
Yes.
Whereas if you make a change, then you could feed off the whole
Yes.
plan, even if it has more
Yes.
scrutiny or if it has less scrutiny.
Yes. But in this case, it's my opinion, it has more scrutiny.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Okay. I'll open the public for a minute.
Just a small.
Yeah.
Should I?
You have to be
It doesn't have to
firm.
be from.
You do.
Do?
You swear from testimony given before the board of truth
I affirm, I just want to.
Please just state your name for the record.
Shlomo Klein. I just want to make sure, the sidewalks over here?
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest my case.
Okay, thank you.
And no basement apartment.
Okay, I would ask for a motion. I would ask for a motion on this. Yeah, Mr. Francis.
The parking is going to be the same amount of parking.
You're adding parking, how many cars? It would be.
Well, area is raised into the 149, you want to order. If you did 150 parking spaces, you have to go cash rent. We don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. The women will have grandkids before they get a chance.
Chairman, just a moment. Jasmine, some of the board members had questions on whether or not if they could act on the correspondence if they were not part of the original application.
If they're not what?
They were not
That's
present.
not a problem whatsoever.
Okay.
So, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I would ask for a motion on this application. Okay, Mr. Stern moves, do we have a second?
I think that's a move to approve.
To
Mr.
approve.
Franklin.
A
A
To
motion
approve.
To approve, to accept the application for administrative.
Administrative.
Do I have a second? Mr. Myers, second, roll call please.
Mr. Fuentes?
Yes.
Mr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel steps down. Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Knapp?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's it for correspondence?
We have a resolution for review from the committee. That should be in your stack of letters, I believe. It's numbered resolution 2019-84. It's regarding the specific definitions of projections that are permitted to required yards. It's pretty self-explanatory to ensure that this arose from the zoning officer with concerns about building permit applications and exactly what's permitted and what's not. And it's an attempt by the committee to specify and make sure that they're not unduly outlawing all stoops.
Right now, water steps, exclude landing or stoop. So, a landing or stoop currently is not permitted in the setback.
Correct.
And now they want to make it permitted as like 4 foot landing or stoop should be.
That's what the ordinance is proposing.
Send
You
that
have
to-
landings and stoops already, I think the change is.
Please be quiet in the audience.
If you look at number,
It was excluded, Gary.
oh, I'm sorry, okay, I stand corrected. So they are including it, but no more than 6 for 5 feet.
And you go anywhere in the setback?
This
I believe that's the way steps.
On the front side.
It can't go more than 6 feet out, because it can't be more than 6 feet by 4 feet. But, so in other words, it's a landing that will be attached to the house, so front
What's that?
side.
No, we have a side, it's on our R7.
Wall side yard setback, that's 7 feet between an R7 and 5.
Well, that doesn't work. We have 1 foot left over for the stoop.
Currently, the stairs, basement stairs could do that anyway.
Now, I understand in the front setback, I understand, on the side, on our side,
I
how would
think
that
we
work?
have to look at different zones, but it's going to go.
Right. I agree with Mr. Renner.
You can already do basement steps, as Al was saying, that's
In R7 point?
Yeah, sure.
Understood.
permitted.
And it sometimes can be problematic from the engineer.
Just if someone wants to have an entrance on the side of their house, so, and their house is a few feet up, it just gives another option, instead of just having a front and a back end.
I understand that. I would feel more comfortable besides R75 not to have side entrances.
And
You're taking away your whole side setback. If somebody has to get to the back of the house, you can't go. I'm tripping over
The kids need to sneak out of the house at night,
Yeah.
they don't want to go in the front door.
Terry, what's your opinion?
I don't have any problem with it, Chairman.
Even on
I
R75?
was thought about it. I'm assuming that that committee has talked to whoever they had to talk to about the ordinance. I haven't had any input. If the board is not certain, you need to table and seek input from the township. I'm not aware of any issue personally.
Mr. Jackson, could we approve this besides on R75, let's say?
Yes.
well, what part?
Or
Mr.
No,
Mills,
let's
take.
look at our 10 setback.
what about requiring that a minimum separation to the setback line is still required? For example,
5 feet, let's say.
5 feet regardless of how large the stoop is,
Okay.
something like, I mean, there are other wording options.
I agree with you. But the minimum has to be 5 feet, that person should walk, let's say. So in R2, If you have 10 feet over there, if it comes up 5 feet, you'll still be okay.
I mean, as it's written over here, I would not recommend this.
Could you recommend the changes that you would like?
I don't know if you know, that's the only side, that's very well.
I believe you could issue a recommendation that you don't find it acceptable, if that's in agreement with the board.
Could we have clarification on the setbacks on different zones of that?
Well, I think the option is, the way the process works is the board has X amount of days, I think it's not that long, to make a recommendation or not make a recommendation. The governing body just has to give you a chance to respond, so you don't ask for clarification. Yeah, they don't have to.
I'm not the attorney in the room, but I think it's 35 days that they have, yeah. But,
There are consequences if the board says no, then you need a greater vote of the committee to adopt it as a board.
I wouldn't say no, but I would agree with Howie that we should leave a minimum to have a walkway to walk.
We could refer back with that recommendation.
yeah, we could, I mean, I'm not gonna vote on it, obviously, over here tonight, but,
How do you vote?
I voted yes. But, it's coming from Grant Siegel. So, you could, even if you approve it, you can state those concerns and say that that's your concern, R75, that you're not against ordinance, but you have an issue with the R75 zone.
Or we leave, something like Howie said, we leave a minimum walkway of, let's say, even 4 feet. And in R75, you have 7.5 feet, and you need 4 feet, you still have 4.5 feet, you can't do it in a 6 foot.
Then there is times when we give back to
If they have a 6 foot thing.
But Mr. Renner, if you say that you need at least a 4 foot walkway, you can't give a variance on that.
I don't think so. There's not enough information.
Okay. You have a question? Speak into the mic.
What's the impact?
Move down the mic. Okay.
So we're talking, what's the circumference of this stoop that they want established?
Basically, I want to say that the front steps or the side steps, the setbacks start from the house.
Yeah.
And that could be in the setbacks. And the only question the board has,
Is this a backyard?
it could be a back or a side. We're talking now about the side.
So there's 25 feet between the houses and the next house? Is that the,
Yeah, the concern is if there, in some zones, the minimum setback requirement could be 7 or 7.5 feet. If you've got 7 from one house to the property line, and they're allowed to have a stoop up to 6 feet within there, there's only
Yes.
1 foot between the stoop and the property line. That's the concern.
If I could add a little clarification, I know it was done for the front stoop. I don't think anybody was thinking like the board, and I think it's a good consideration the board has, is thinking about.
These guys are pretty smart.
Yes, well, that's why they get paid the big bucks.
The ordinance over here, it says any setback.
Yes, and I think it would certainly be a good recommendation from the board that there's no problem with the front, but on the sides, you gotta comply, correct?
What the ordinance proposed language actually says, it goes through various things that can project into the setbacks. It talks about handicap ramps, cornices, second story projections into the rear yard setback. I guess if you have like a balloon construction, you can go 24 inches out past it. But it says, all other steps that descend to the basement may project into any rear yard setback as long as no closer than 5 feet from the adjacent property line. But number 5, all other steps, including a maximum 6 by 4 foot landing or stoop, may project into any front or rear yard setback.
So you're saying yes?
So what I take from this is that currently steps can go all the way out, I guess theoretically, to the property line.
Well,
But
John, isn't that what number 4 says?
5.
No closer than 5 feet?
Number 4, and this isn't a new ordinance, when I see this, it has a cross out on number 5, I assume the new provision would cross out excluding the landing or stoop, including a maximum. So it says all other steps, so it's being changed to exclude the landing or stoop. And then it also includes a maximum 6x4 foot stoop may project.
Yeah, but John, number four says that, for example, basement steps could not be any closer than 5 feet from the adjacent property line.
Right.
So that means, and number 5 says that all other steps, and then we're adding in, including a maximum of a 6x4 landing. Shouldn't that also mean that landing can't go within 5 feet of the adjacent property line?
No, I don't think so. I think that's-
But it makes it clear, it's front and rear. I hadn't seen it before. The first part that you read was all the existing ordinance.
Right.
The new part is saying, well, I heard what John read, so it's pretty clear. The new part is saying that the stoop can go into the front or the rear setback. So it eliminates the concerns that the board had. So apparently the township committee is pretty smart too.
Right, but it doesn't have that 5 foot that you talked about.
No, Brian, right now,
Well, but it says front and rear setback, so it's not allowing it on the side setbacks.
A home can't go within 20 feet of I don't think any zone are you allowed to have a home within 20 feet.
So the steps will never have that issue, unless it's got a variance already or something, you may have exceptions.
sometimes they're very wide, big steps coming up in the front of the home.
But this is only 6x4 is the max landing.
Brian, what's the current zone? When I build up side steps.
Side steps is just what John read. Any setback, you can go up, you have to leave 5 feet from the steps to the side property.
The 5 feet.
Well, on steps that go to the basement, that can project into any yard setback, but all other steps may project into any front or rear yard setback, including the stoop landing 6.5.
But again,
6 by 4.
front and rear.
Yeah, front and
So-
rear. It
So
doesn't
no,
say to do it on the side.
the only steps that are allowed to encroach into the side setback are steps going to the basement, because it's not typical that you put them going into the other part.
And I still have to leave 5 feet?
And they have to leave 5 feet. So none of that's changing, that's all staying the same.
How's it possible if you have an R75, you have 7.5 feet, and you have to take it 5 feet, in 2.5 feet you have basement steps?
Well, you can have basement steps that go to 5 feet, you can't have 7.5 side setback at that point. You have to have 9 or 10 feet so that the steps work.
So technically in R75, you do not have side steps, according to this.
They put them in front, or you can do them internal. Sometimes you have a walkway and an entrance internal, but that part of it's been working. Yeah, that part of it has been working and it's not being changed. And it does incorporate what the board was concerned about, leaving access on the side.
Okay, thank you.
I think you have to also take into account, this is what the governing body wants to do, it's a question whether it's consistent or inconsistent with the message. So, you know, I don't know where this would be at odds with any provision of the to
I think the way you explained it is much clearer than on the side setback, you are leaving the 5 feet.
Right.
Okay, that's covered, okay?
John, the only thing that's changing is the cross out on 5 and the addition on 5.
Yes.
That's the only change.
That's what I presume by the way this is formatted. Whenever I
Right.
see statutory language changes, they cross out,
Yeah.
I just add the sections that
It's
are.
in the minor change.
Okay. I would ask for motion. Okay, Mr. Renner moves. Thank you, Mr. Stern, second, roll call.
Mr. Fuentes?
Yes.
Mr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Sable?
Abstain.
Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Ecker?
I'm going to abstain because I'm voting on the committee.
That's right. Okay.
Okay. That's it for correspondence and ordinances? Up to number 1 now.
Number 1 is SP 2271A for Bay Shandell. It's an amended major site plan for an addition to an existing school located on River Avenue.
Terry, when you're ready, go for the report.
Thank you, Chairman. As indicated on the third page of our review letter, there are submission waivers including traffic study submission to Ocean County Planning, B waivers, Toco contours spanning 340 feet, plans and profiles of facility layouts, yes, tree protection management and design calculations. We are in support of most of the waivers as indicated in the letter. We do want testimony, which we'll hear shortly, that justifies the lack of a traffic study.
Okay, so besides the traffic study, you recommend that we grant the waivers?
That's correct.
We have a motion on the recommendation. A second?
What's the waiver?
All the waivers besides the traffic study right now. Second. Are you all in favor for the waivers? Aye. Okay. On the traffic study, we want to like to testimony.
Oh, okay.
Vote on it.
That's good.
Mr. Chairman, I have applicant, Councilor Mr. Gilmore.
You swear firm testimony that before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, my professional engineer, professional plan. But you can just get testimony just on traffic, the application is for a 13,260 square foot lunchroom. No additional classrooms, no additional students, no additional traffic, it's just for the lunchroom. So there's no additional buses, no additional cars, no additional anything. So the traffic study is going to tell you traffic before development, before this building is built is the same as after the building.
Is the current lunchroom will be classrooms?
What, you said this application is just for
In addition, square footage is only for the vestibule and the lunchroom.
Yeah, lunchroom,
What? Might they
toilets.
like propose like 13,000 square foot, there's one additional?
No, okay. That is, we already got that approval for the third floor addition. A year ago, 9 months, a year ago. Because we haven't gotten those plans signed, we have to include the addition as part of this application. Just to reiterate that we didn't give up on that plan. We still want to build the third floor. This is already approved. It's already approved, all the variances were approved. This is just for the lunch, actually adding to that application, a lunchroom.
So where do the girls currently eat lunch? Yeah,
For the building.
Only after the traffic study.
I understand, but it's fine.
We only have two things on the agenda, we got it.
You swear firm testimony that before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
We do, hey, Val, I think the current situation is the procedure is insufficient and inadequate to fix all students we eat in classrooms, we eat in other areas, it's not okay at all. And right now, the plan is to make this normal lunchroom off the kitchen, the way it's supposed to be, where everyone can come, eat, way close. The upstairs is going to be a shopping room, it's going to gather and praise, I think that having overlapping tables, praying back and forth.
We're requesting the waiver on the traffic, other traffic waiver.
We have a motion to approve or deny the waiver on the traffic study.
I'll go home with it, I know the traffic is over.
All right.
Can't go worse.
All in favor for the waiver? Aye. Okay. Okay, I'm going back to time.
All right, continuing on, Chairman, under zoning, continuing on page 4 of the review. In comment number 2, we note that there are several pre-existing variances that currently run with the project. Beginning on comment 3 at the bottom of page 4 and page 5, we know the minimum side yard setback is required in the HD zone, and our interpretation of the revised plans indicated the side yard setback is either 25.8 or 26 feet, and we will need clarification on that. Also, we'll need information relative to an existing shed. If that's going to remain, that may require variance approval as well.
When you're talking about the variances, these are new variances?
Our comment 3, we interpret as a new variance, but we're seeking input because we're not sure what the actual dimension is.
This is number 2 is one existing variance.
That's correct, sir. There is a variance required for parking within the 65-foot setback from state highway, and then buffer relief is also required with respect to the adjacent properties. And you'll give testimony as to the adequacy of the bus loading area. I think that's all the relief request. Right, and then finally, Chairman, if I could, on the top of page 6, the one design waiver for street trees and one project.
Thank you.
So, number 5 is proposed, the new proposed parking. Number 5 is around.
Is that parking existing?
All the parking on the site is existing.
All right, so that's our, okay, that's our, so that's our mistake, that's pre-existing.
Mr. Lyon, sworn in.
Now you can address yourself.
Previous market pre-existing, so it's happening on. That's another over market. A1 is sheet 3A, site plan drawing, which the proposed addition already in blue. A2 is the same drawing, which we've overlaid the Google map on, to get a feel for the properties around the site. And A3 is sheet Z1, which is the architectural, showing the existing school array, addition to the renting lot.
So your pool goes away?
The pool goes away, the dumpsters go away, the driveway back, so the sidewalks back, all here is building. New dumpster is being treasured on the north side of the site, basically in on the north driveway on the north side. The pool is being eliminated. They're right here on the board, it says lot 82. Large R10, there's two trash compactors woodlands.
Got approval, who's taking care of the township?
That's what the township wants. They want the dumpsters with the compactors on them, because of the amount of trash schools create now, and they want to pick up once, or they think maybe once every other. Yes. Correct.
Could you address the bus issue on the bus?
Currently, the buses,
How many buses do you have?
I believe the number we testified to at the prior meeting was a total of 13. There were 11, we added 2, and we went to 3.
This obligation is not adding any more students that previously approved application. We're adding 20. We'll answer any questions you want regarding traffic and traffic flow, but those have already been approved.
Yeah, I understand, but the place where you're building a building, it's not a place where you had any drop-offs and buses got around?
The area where the building's going was curved off, and the only access, there's a small access in to pick up the trash dumpster that was there, and make some deliveries. So that whole driveway's
It's
being.
like squaring out the building on that area.
Correct.
So the paved area north of the pool was just garbage for parking?
There was no parking there.
No drop-off, no parking, nothing.
No, nothing. The buses park on the north side of the building, above where it's E7 on the plan. But buses entered from suddenly the two entrances, the one-way entrances in, around from the school, on the side of the building, through the parking lot, and out this driveway that's on the west side of the property. They don't turn around into the parking lot on that.
They loop around the building.
They loop around the building all the way out and out on High Street.
And it's working.
It's worked for,
At the best that it's.
so far, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think you can address Jeremy's,
Right, go through the variances. We received variances for this shed, which is in the northeast corner of the property, near the rear property line.
It's existing, right?
It's existing, and prior resolution indicates that those variances were granted.
What new variances are there?
We're not requesting any new variance, it's just all the variances that were previously approved are being, reapproved, basically.
Everything was approved by the us.
Correct.
Nothing's changed.
Are there any new variances on this application?
No, there are not.
What about the issue with the side yard, where, the comment, we had 1/7 information showing 25.8, another showing 26?
I believe the problem is that the dimension on this plan was automatically rounded off by the computer at 0 spaces, so it should be 20.
The setback record is 20,
25.8 rather than 26.
but when you round up, like, all right, when is the setback, the setback required?
I think,
The reserve meets the requirement.
Right, so then that complies with the minimum requirement, or does not?
we do not comply. We didn't comply before.
Wait, okay.
That's
That's a pre-existing setback?
Yes.
Okay.
Previously approved. And the third story is just being built directly above the
So
existing wall.
you're going to match the previously approved setback?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
If I can just, I'm looking at the circulation plan you provided. This shows that the buses are coming out on, making a turn, or coming from the parking lot and coming back around. And it's also showing the bus loading on the side of the property. Kind of front. Narrow, but
That's not actually, it's not actually to the buses. That's to show that we can get in and pick up the garbage in the dumpster, and then a garbage truck can get back out.
This is bus loading zone.
Well, that is the bus loading zone on that side of the building. That isn't what that.
That's a concern.
It isn't what the circulation was intended to, show.
And the buses are going on
supposedly they go around.
the bus exit on the high street.
That property was the end towards High Street, High Street is part of this.
Yes, there's a 20-foot strip of land.
That's not, it's not a township property or something left over.
It's part of the school. It was left as an access point, the last property at the end was subdivided into 2 places. It's actually became by the school for a 20-foot access for the buses.
The next concern is having a loading and an unloading zone on the side, where there's a road with cars go.
It's been working for years. This is not a new situation at all.
I think at the last testimony we had that the buses are going in the front, I thought so.
Correct.
Right.
It's a loading zone where the buses are stacking zone. The way the buses leave, they pull up, and I think it's down in front of the school. So the buses are just, in case there are multiple buses there, so then it's stacked. And then you wait for the other buses to go out, and they come up, and let everybody out.
Okay, so how many buses do we, I guess, what's the law required to have a loading zone buses to stack?
I don't know if there's a requirement based on number of buses. I think,
How big does a loading zone, a school bus loading zone, supposed to be or should be? What was it recommended?
There's not actually a loading zone identified in the
Location.
ordinance. There's a parking space, which is 12 by 40, but that's, 4 feet wider than a bus.
When somebody builds a school, does it not have to provide a special spot for a drop-off location? And how many of those do they have to provide?
Well, that's what we're saying, buses,
Answer my question, how many do they have to provide? They might have enough, I just want to
There's no set number.
There's no set number.
It's whatever works for the school. As we said, they've been unloading the students in this location for years, and it works. It doesn't go into
Buses, students do not, I agree with that, it's unsafe. What it is, the buses that are here, so it happens before, there is no buses.
From the back.
Yeah, and we can put in there that buses will not, students will not unload on the site. I do agree.
Or the rear, or the front.
That's correct, I do agree.
It was pointed out that that's an area that buses can stack.
Which is not going to be.
Because
you have a lot of cars dropping off kids, and it becomes a one-way road.
That's correct, that always hasn't happened, all buses, all buses here, and then.
I was there today, with him, cars going on the side of the roadway.
It's not, again, there is no buses unloading the side.
Can you make that a one-way?
In the front of the behind the school, all staff over here, get after school, front buses, we always pull out.
Right next to the addition? Right in front of the addition?
Correct. Pretty much front of the school.
And nothing goes on the front side?
Can we make that a one-way, even for cars? I saw a lot of cars going around trucks, going around cars, and minivans and stuff. You mentioned before that the bus is dropping off in the front, and therefore, it is the back. It is the back, drop location, and there's no addition, it's not an effect.
The new plan will reflect where the bus becomes,
The parking on the schedule for the current EDO,
That always stays the same, not touching them and adding any student parking.
is it for our,
yes.
no, you didn't have any parking, I just want to make sure that it's conformal.
We have access parking.
You didn't ask for a waiver on parking last time?
No.
How many classes do we have in total?
According to the UDO, we need 53 parking spaces. We have 130.
Build something on top of it.
Coming back to the
And we didn't lose any parking in this.
Okay, continue with your report, please. Which page are you on?
65 feet front setback, that was granted in the last meeting, that hasn't changed.
This is just a one story, correct? Not two.
Correct.
Beginning of the.
There's a one-story.
Lobby.
The old approval is the balcony.
There's a question, number 8, regarding the sign in front of the property. It is setback 15 feet, that was on the last plan. For some reason, it was a mistake, we did not show the 15-foot front setback on this plan. Just going on to design waivers, Perry indicated we need a design waiver for shade trees, as discussed with the client, and we will be adding those providing shade trees. Without the request of waiver. Basically, the rest of the comments in the letter we can comply with.
Sidewalks you have, right?
We did add the sidewalks to the River Avenue side and High Street side of the project. We proposed again the sidewalks in the front that the DOT says they have a project where they're going to do them. And as with the prior approval, if they're not in within 2 years, the applicant will do it.
Is there anything in the report that you don't do?
No. I think we can address all
all the comments.
Any board members have any questions for that? Okay, I'll open up to the public. Anybody from the public would like to be heard on this application, please come forward.
Swear affirm testimony to be before the board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I affirm.
Please state your name.
Shlomo Klein.
Please proceed.
Okay, I want to speak about the applicant. I just want to confirm this applicant is Rabbi Kanarik, right?
The applicant is very safe.
Who's the owner of Beit Shinigum?
Please review this application.
Who's the dean of the school? Oh, that's the witness. Yes. So I want to speak about Rabbi Kanarik. He's a very, very, very special person. Somebody so special you don't find them in Lakewood, you don't find them in Brooklyn, you don't find them in Israel. He's a very, he has a school, and he takes in kids that nobody else wants to take them in. Not saying all the kids are like that. I'll give an example. I don't think any on the board, anybody from the board over here has kids in that school, not to refuse this one. The reason is, everybody wants to take them into schools. They're special people. But he takes in, he's really trying to get in people into school. He's really there for the kids, not for his money. He really cares about, now I'll give you an example. So, a case that I was personally involved, a kid didn't have a school, nobody
Mr.
wanted-
Klein?
Yes.
This is wonderful. It has nothing to do with the land use aspects of this case. It's not really relevant, and the board should not consider that someone's a good person or a bad person. We have to look at the four corners of the application and make our decision based on that. And I'm just instructing the board. No.
Okay.
Say you want, but it's really not relevant to the application.
Okay, if I finish and you don't see my testimony relevant, then strike it. I'll give you an example that a case that nobody wanted to take in. He took in the kid. After a while, the kid was in the school. After a few years, that he didn't charge any money, and because nobody was able to pay. And what happened was that the kid needed it would be beneficial for the kid to have an out-of-town school. Not only did he got the kid into school, he still paid the kid the boarding and the tuition, a lot of money every month, and this is something that you don't find regular. So when such an applicant comes in, I think you should put away all your toughness, what you give everybody else. He's there for the kids, and therefore as far as waivers, variances, anything that he needs, he's not over there to just put in another kid and charge more money and accumulate more money in his pocket. He's doing it for the kids, and therefore whatever he's doing is give him a leeway. Just he should be able to have more space for the kids and not have to be busy because this doesn't work perfect and that doesn't work perfect. So I hope it's okay, Mr. Jackson, my testimony, or this will have to disregard it.
I recommend that the board not consider the
one word that I
things
said.
that Mr. Klein has said.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public would like to be heard on this application, please come forward. Seeing no one, we'll close it to the public. Mr. Sable, yeah, you have a question?
Would the applicant agree to put a sidewalk along this side? Would the applicant agree to put a sidewalk along all the way to the side? Because I saw people, where the buses come out on High Street, 20 feet. Will the buses come out? No, on this property. Yeah, there we go.
There's not only 20 feet. It's only 20 feet wide, so we can't put, someone on someone else's property. If we take away, we put out 20 feet, it's not gonna make it shorter, not safe.
I saw kids walking.
Definitely going to the sidewalk there, the buses are coming, kids are walking, definitely on the curb. It's not safe.
The way to do it is to go from the school around, make it happen, 4 feet. The pavement, like an asphalt. We don't need curb, you can do other things on it.
I said, encourage, I'll have the school tell the kids, you know, what, if you don't get 20 feet, you kind of count yourself an extra part, it's not safe.
Exactly your opinion.
Yeah. No, that's not
Mr. Lowe, while we have you here, regarding the bus loading zone, you will change the plans that it should be only in the rear. No buses will go, they could stack over there, but no unloading any kids over there.
No standing.
It's a- Okay, I would like the plans to reflect that. And can your engineer work together with Terry, possibility of making it a one-way? And the kid, work together with Terry on that.
You can include me in the conversation.
Terry and Frank guarantee, we'll do our best to see it work.
Okay.
Again, just doing this application, not seeking any additional variances, all the variances that we requested, let's say variances that were previously approved, we're just asking them as the addition had not been built. The only addition that we're asking for really this evening is for lunch.
Okay, thank you. I would ask for a motion on this application.
I'll make a motion to approve it with a deed restriction for a simple.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sable, I missed.
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
It doesn't work.
Restriction for a simple.
I can't, not cutting off.
Sorry, that's my motion.
You would like that the hall, the lunchroom not be used as a hall? That was his motion.
I'm going to ask again, we've had this conversation with the board many times about putting a deed restriction on the property. We're not asking this evening for any variance, this is all previously approved. The lunchroom is not for being rented out for any other purpose, other than, we'll put it on the plan. I mean, to add it to a deed restriction, I mean, I can't, it was happening, the properties ever sold years later. We've complied with all other requirements, now it's put in here, it can't be rented out. And just to put it, not that we're asking for it, but as testified before, we have about 150, I think we said, parking spaces. I had no idea, in the event it came back, they'd have to push them back before the board. They had no intention this time, but I don't think the deed restriction on there, I mean, I think that's completely.
So if you want to use it for outside, simples to rent out as a hall, you have to come back to the board. Are you agree with that?
Yes, we don't come back.
Is that,
We can have
That's not-
addition over there, no?
could you
It's for
amend?
the school, but it's an existing school.
What is going to stop? So I'm into the chill works over there. And you're going to, nice amount of parking.
It's not a permitted use. I mean, it's not permitted, you don't have an approval for it.
What's the consequence of putting it in the restriction?
You have to go to court. To get off of the restriction, you have to go to court, not just take it
Is
off.
there another idea?
You put it into the resolution.
And we're agreeing.
They have to come back to the board if they want to use it for outside simples as a whole.
It's just, I'm sorry, just for the benefit of some of the board members who haven't been here as long, this is a discussion that comes up fairly regularly. The issue, as I understand it, is that a deed restriction is almost permanent. The board would not have the ability to then alter that deed restriction in the future. They would be required by the board and have a judge change that.
That's the law of deed restrictions. If they're in the public interest, only the Superior Court has the authority to lift the deed restriction. Now, I don't know if that would apply to something that had conditions and there were provisions in it that would make it expire. But the way the case law is right now is called American Dream versus Marlboro. Only the court can take that. I don't like deed restrictions. I mean, in my view, I don't know what a deed restriction does over and above what a planning board resolution would do.
I mean, the applicant didn't request for a catering hall. I'm just concerned. If they would come in for an application for that, including the lunchroom, I'm sure the board would look at it different and have different.
Would you
That's a
agree?
different story.
Let's put it on the resolution, we'll make a note on the time.
Would you agree with?
Comfortable with that?
Okay, so, no, Mr. Sables, you have to amend your motion. You amend your motion that will include it on the resolution that they can't make any outside halls, and if they ever want to, they have to come back to the board and get permission for that. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Meyer, second, roll call.
Mr. Fuentes?
Yes.
Mr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Renner? And Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take our last application for the night, which is SP 2306. Made by 1650 Massachusetts Ave LLC. This is another major site plan for a school located on Massachusetts Avenue.
Terry, when you're ready, can you go to the report, please? Shh, please be quiet. No audience.
Submission waivers for chairman. We have several identified, proof of submission, Ocean County Planning, topo contours of man-made features within 200 feet, and DIS. Under the first waiver, for Ocean County Planning Board, the applicants indicated that, they will make application if the board approves. So we recommend the waiver for public hearing purposes, and if it's approved, they're going to make application. Finally, we support 8 waivers, and we also support the waiver of the EIS, based on the fact that there's no disturbance of the mapping. The applicant has given tree protection.
That's on the work of the Lakewood, right? Yes. I would ask for a motion for all say the rules. Mr. Renner, second, all in favor of the waivers, aye.
Yeah, the variance relief is indicated, on page 3. Relief is necessary with respect to the perimeter buffering. Also, for all 3 parking facilities, required buffer. For our interpretation, there is a front yard setback. Variance also necessary. The revised plans show a minimum material frame yard setback for the site at lease sign, which is less than the 15-foot minimum. That's also frame yard setback. I believe that's all the various relief.
Correct.
And then finally, the design waiver is required to permit fencing along the terminus of the improved right of way.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Alan Pepper, for the applicant. As Terry indicated, we're seeking tonight whether we need a final site plan approval to construct a charter school on the site for kindergarten to the 8th grade. It'll be a 3-story school with a partial basement for storage only. Interesting, this parcel, the property in question, actually the plans show that it's on the plan. The artificial system. It's a partial basement. As you can see, the property line, that's the township line, cuts right through it, it's partially in Tom's River. So we're also going to be seeking approval from the Tom's River, actually, the zoning board there, for their approval.
I have a question.
Yes.
What are you doing on, which property is on purpose? The bottom part?
The bottom part. Just part.
So, Tom's River does not approve you?
Well, they approve the whole thing, they approve the site, they approve the whole application, both townships have to approve it. If we get this approval and Tom's River says no,
So we're subject to them?
we both tied it together, both townships have to approve
It's
it.
not that they don't approve it, they don't have a parking.
No, it's not piecemeal, it's not that you approve the building and if they don't approve the parking, we have to go to the parking, because there's no school parking. We have to go through them, we have to submit an application that we, we're scheduled to hear everything on March 14th.
We have to have both boards agree.
Both boards have to approve.
It's not that we're subject to them or they're subject to us. It's like getting county approval and town approval. They need both, or DEP approval and town approval. They have to get it from Tom's River, they have to get it from us.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if they don't get it, our approval is not. This approval subject, but the condition that you still need Tom's River approval.
Right. Conditions of our approval.
Before I swear in my professional account, I just bring up a representative of the school, have them sworn in, and just give you a little overview about what the school is and who they are.
Schools exist.
Yeah, you can need a testimony.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony will give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name.
My name is Valerie Smith. I'm lead founder and executive director of Ocean County Charter School.
Yes, sir. We can just get a little bit over the school, existing where you are today, new locations, what your school does.
Please speak into the mic.
Okay, we are the only charter school in Ocean County. We report directly to the New Jersey Department of Education. Our charter was approved for the initial school year of 2017-18, so we're in our second year. The charter was approved by the state of New Jersey as a K-8 charter that will have a total of 540 kids once we get all those grades filled. With charter schools, you start from the bottom up. Right now, we are educating kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. Every year, we accept 60 new children into kindergarten, and the school rises and continues to rise until we reach 8th grade. We're currently located at Christ United Methodist Church on 5th Street. That's my main campus. We are also renting space for a kindergarten center from Georgian University. We knew when we went into these properties that we would be outgrowing them, just by the size of what the school is going to be. The school is a public school, there's no tuition, and we've got small classes. We're trying to provide a really good education for the children of Lakewood. And basically, it's a charter school, it's a school of choice. As you can see, we've got a lot of support. Most people here in the audience are my teachers, parents, and students, and others.
You are a public school.
We are a public school.
What difference is a charter from the regular public school?
The difference is that charter schools are afforded a lot more creativity in how they go about, various ways of educating students. We're not constricted by a lot of the regulations that traditional public schools have to abide by. We've been very fortunate. First of all of our money comes from the state of New Jersey. So we get a per pupil amount. I think that amount right now is about $15,000 per student. So through some tight budgeting and everything, we feel confident that we'll be able to lease this space. We were very fortunate. We were approached by a builder investor who is a local gentleman who actually built 2 charter schools up in Somerset County. And he approached me and said that he might be interested, and I was a little bit unsure. It was like too good to be true, and when he brought me up to Somerset County to see his schools, they were absolutely magnificent. And so we're ready to go. Okay?
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. As indicated, the application tonight is for a charter school. I have 4 exhibits up. A1 is a copy of the tax map showing in orange the portion of the property which is in Lakewood Township. A2 is a rendering of the site plan, which shows the township boundary line, which runs through the site and has some parking and some driveway access to it. A3 and A4 are renderings of the proposed building. I think the board, I know the public is really excited about it, but I would think the board would feel the same way. It's a very attractive site, and it was laid out with a lot of thought. The parking exceeds what the ordinance required because they provided the parking, the access that they know they need for their school. Looking at the report, under zoning on page 3, item 1 indicates it's a permitted use. Item 2 indicates that we're looking for a relief with respect to buffering. and the buffering is on the southerly side in Tom's River where it comes less than 20 feet from the property. We're providing fencing and landscaping all around. What, in my opinion, meets the intent of the ordinance as far as buffering. The back of the property is adjacent to the open space of the Fairways development. And the building was oriented so that rather than putting the parking and the driveways and all the activity in front of the building, which would not be as aesthetically pleasing as this, it was oriented so that all that activity occurs on the side and the rear, and the front of the building, as you can see in the rendering, will be very aesthetically pleasing and compatible with what's in that area.
So how much feet do you have over there with that buffer?
With the buffer, it's angled parking, the closest is about 4 feet.
It's supposed to be 20.
And it's supposed to be 20, but we're providing a fence, it's in the Tom's River side of it, and as indicated, Tom's River needs to approve this also, but if you look at the location of it and the area it's in, and I'm sure the board members are familiar with this area, that's not something that's impacting on any residences or anybody that's going to be a problem. And notices were sent out to everybody within 200 feet. I've only seen people in the ordinance that are in favor of this application.
Why was it being like 10 spots plus 15 minutes? Very interesting.
But it's a design waiver, not a variance. Yes. Which, in my professional opinion, is that the parking, the benefits of that parking far outweigh any detriment to and the buffer, and the intent of the ordinance is complied with by the fencing and the remainder of the property where we provide planting and open spaces. And
Technically, it's also only 41 spaces, you're giving 70.
yes, but it's eliminated. But the school doesn't want to do that. The school wants these parking so that they're a good neighbor and all the activity stays on the site, and the parking was thought out with who's going to park where and how this.
So the only reason you need this variance or this waiver is to try and give as much parking as possible.
Yes, and it's 3.21 feet.
May I just clarify, because I know there were some questions from some of the neighbors as well. It sounds like you're addressing the buffer relief required on the south side. Is there
Yes.
also a buffer relief required on the north side?
Yes. In the rear portion of it's 9.5 to the parking lot, and the back is 9.33 feet to the parking lot.
Whereas they would require 20 all the way?
Yes.
Thank you.
Then the variance that we require is for front yard setback. 70 feet is required, the building is setback at 50 feet. And as I indicated, that was done so that the building was closer to the road. I think when you look at the renderings, you can see that the aesthetics of it is much better than you would have if you flipped it around and you had all that parking and all the activity in the front and put the building in the back so that you had that 70 feet. By flipping that around and putting the building at 50, and just so you're aware, as of last year, 50 was the requirement. The new master plan said for this zone that it should be 70, so it's consistent with other approvals that have been given in the past. And in my professional opinion, for this particular area, that 50 feet is well in keeping with development of the area, and the benefits of it outweigh any detriment.
There's no building as well.
There's a couple of houses in the area, and
One single family.
and the one that's on this property as well. And the sign in the front, also the ordinance says it should be set back 15 feet. We proposed it at 5 feet. It's my professional opinion that it works there, and it'll provide better notification of where the site is. it being there, it'd be a C2 variance where we need to show the benefits outweigh the detriment. My professional opinion is there is no detriment to that, and the benefit is it's in the most logical spot. It provides the most logical notification of where the property is.
It doesn't interfere with the triangle or something?
The site triangle, no, it does not. And Massachusetts is a county road, so we need county approval also. If the county thought that as site distance, but the county goes by the AASHTO site triangle, and the AASHTO site triangle would be clear of that. Additionally, we do have a traffic engineer, and he could give his opinion on that, so that he gets to provide some testimony as well.
How hard is it to, or how much hard are the two entrances?
Well, they're about as far apart as the building, it's a 108-foot wide building.
So it needs to be a 200 feet for our size on the line. We had that on the street.
That was
Let's go, the sheet was just give it. Said our sign would not.
Well, this isn't residential development, so it doesn't
That was the
apply.
issue as well. That was the issue, it's a school.
I didn't do that application. I'm telling you, again, it's my opinion, and if we have the traffic engineer, he'll give his opinion on that. He deals with the county on a regular basis. It's my opinion that the county will like this design, they'll approve this design, and this is the best design for the subject property.
I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is. That we said, no, we can't do it because RSIs, it's not complying with RSIs. Why is it different?
You'd have to ask whoever did that application. I didn't do that application.
Did you do that?
I believe there was an application of traffic light, plus,
I don't think he was in it.
Well, they should have had it, because then he could have given you the information, because that is the.
Because we wanted the school buses over there and we couldn't get it. Because it's only feet apart.
Terry indicates also that a design waiver is required. We're not improving the paper street. The paper street is in Tom River. You can see on 82, it's in the middle on the bottom of that. It would be silly to improve that, and it's not like the jurisdiction anyway. With respect to the variances that are needed, if you look at the master plan of 2017, the vision statement, it says encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. It's my testimony that this does this. This is an inherently beneficial use that provides for a much better facility for a school that's already operating. The municipal land use provided VAC 40:55D2 under the purpose of the act to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all land in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. It's my testimony that this does advance the general welfare. In order to get C2 variances, we need to show that it relates to a specific piece of property. And I think when you have a property on a municipal boundary line, certainly that is specific. This isn't something that reoccurs. The purpose of the municipal land use law would be advanced, which is what I indicated. It advances the general welfare. The variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, which is a test on the impact on the adjoining properties. And it's my testimony that it can be granted without any detriment to the public good. The variance will not impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance, and to the extent that it's consistent with the zoning ordinance, that's satisfied. And then we need to show that the benefits substantially outweigh any detriment. My testimony is the benefit of providing a inherently beneficial use, providing a proper site. When you look at the aesthetics, it's a school that is done by people who know what they're doing and provided a very nice facility. So it's my opinion that it clearly the benefits substantially outweigh what, in my opinion, is de minimis detriment. Continuing through the rest of the report, a circulation plan has been provided, and as indicated, it shows that there's 7 buses. The traffic engineer will certainly speak to this in his testimony. The traffic engineer indicates when the site is at full capacity, 10 buses would be needed to transport the students. All 10 buses don't show up at the same time. Even if the start times are the same, the buses stagger, so that this site, anyone familiar with the school sites in Lakewood knows that the stacking for buses at this site greatly exceeds the norm. Sidewalks, we're going to provide sidewalks across the front of the truck.
What about Massachusetts?
Yes, yes. He indicates in comment 4 that 45 spaces are required and 71 are being provided. The testimony he indicates should be on the material of the building. I think you can see from the renderings it's going to be a beautiful building. And the signage that's proposed, we are asking for a variance with respect to the location, but the remainder of the sign would comply with the ordinance. And that would be my testimony. The traffic and the report that you can agree with. No, the other items we would satisfy the board.
Board, any questions, comments, any board members have any questions?
Just going to confirm, the basement said that it's just a small area to be developed, obviously.
The applicant intends to build in accordance with the plan that was submitted, which is a small area that's for storage. No simple.
As I mentioned, always mentioned it as.
Yes.
If you have any other,
I do. Scott Kennel, Kennel, with McDonough and Ray Associates, 1431 Lakewood Road, Manasquan.
You're offered as
A traffic expert.
Yes. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you.
I see one place you have a D. Can we get it down to a C?
We're close. It's on the lower range of a D. But I think what's also important to note that the plan doesn't show is that we've been communicating with Ocean County, and this plan will be enhanced as far as access, where there's going to be a dedicated striped left turn lane on Massachusetts Avenue to better segregate traffic coming in and out. Correct.
A2, proximity in advance of the entry driveway.
There'll be a left turn lane of about a length of 100 feet. So that helps provide a refuge area for people making left turns and better segregates traffic. To your comment,
Traffic will keep flowing.
it can keep flowing, correct.
Going north, right?
Going north. The question as far as the number of driveways and the spacing. I mean, the spacing is conducive to this plan, and it's important to note that the southerly driveways for ingress only, and the northerly driveways for egress. So it's one way in at the southerly driveway and one way out. So it is not as if we're creating two-way driveways. And that's where you get into an issue about spacing and how close they should be. This is a bifurcated access system, and one which the county has reviewed, and their request is to provide the left turn lane on Massachusetts Avenue, and we will comply with that.
Going out of the subject property.
There'll be two
Right or left?
Yes, there'll be two exit lanes. There'll be a left turn lane and a right turn lane, again, to segregate traffic as they're exiting the site and to provide a more efficient access system.
One way, there's only one right now, or one left now.
Correct, there's two lanes coming out, but one lane's that if they left turns, and the other one's for right turns.
You remember the application we had on Lanesville?
I wasn't involved in that. This
They
again.
told us they cannot do it, we're in and out, because of 200 feet, and other parts, I think it was 100, but it was 200.
There are county standards as far as spacing of driveways and offset to other driveways. Again, this is a bifurcated access system, a little different. I would imagine from the other application, I wasn't involved in it. And in fact, we don't have any other driveways that will provide any conflict. There's no driveways directly opposite this site.
The circle driveway.
I think from what I recall in the other application, there was another access point that was causing the issue. There was a third point.
This property was, I think, 105, 110 feet, so they couldn't do it.
two buildings.
It's relevant to that location, because I want to see who's, are they full of us, or that's?
And as Mr. Chairman mentioned, for the morning, we have a level service C for the exiting traffic, a level service D for the afternoon, and then the left turn movement into the site would operate at level service A during both peak hours. So again, it's my opinion that this access system can operate safely and efficiently, and definitely with the additional improvements that the county's asked for.
And these acceptable?
Yes, it is.
I mean, I personally have no problem. It makes a lot more sense than having buses on the roadway. So we did, we couldn't do it for some reason. They told us it's not RSI.
I'm not aware of that application, so I can't answer.
Eventually, when you have 10 buses, where are the buses going to?
Well, again, as Mr. Flannery testified, not all the buses arrive at the same time. I think that we have stacking for 8, even though there's not one shown adjacent to the parking here. I mean, that's a short-term duration. In reality, it functions to accommodate 8 buses, but they don't all arrive at the same time. And once they achieve full occupancy, which may be 3 to 5 years, they will then, in the afternoon, which is a more critical period, they'll have staggered dismissals, so that there is no issue with buses backing out onto Massachusetts Avenue.
And then they have more than 7 at the same time, at any given time.
At any given time, correct.
Is it parents dropping off kids individually will be in the same stack?
No, they can, again, there's a separate lane that allows the parents to bring their children on site. As far as the operations, I'll defer back to the operator, but I would imagine it could be a situation where the parents walk the children in, because again, you don't want them to put them with the buses.
If the parents come in on the top too, and they go around?
They can enter the site, come into the parking field, park.
But how do they enter the site?
They enter the site at the same location. There's enough adequate width here to allow the bus stacking lane and the passenger vehicle to 2 lanes. 2 lanes.
So your rendering has the car going out, really the car's coming in?
No, this is coming in on the rendering. This is the bus stacking lane, this is the travel lane, the passenger car.
The cars going to one car.
The car's going their own way. I'm easily confused.
This is a problem with rendering.
It's a pretty picture. It's a pretty picture.
Any other questions for the traffic engineer or Flannery? Seeing none, I'll open up to the public.
Thank you.
Anybody from the public would like to be heard on this application, please come forward.
They affirm. I wanted to get up and say what I saw over here tonight. The parent bodies, the teachers, especially the children, so well behaved. This must be a special school. You know, the second thing that I want to say is I see the owner, the developer, coming in over here. He greeted me. He was not hostile. So it's also something that you don't see normally. But I'm not going to say anything because I'm afraid the attorney is going to strike my testimony. So just going to keep quiet of that part. I just have a question to the organizer. And my question usually when I ask questions is to closed application. I think this time is going to help us more support application. I'll tell you why, because usually when you have a school, we need more schools. So if they ask you to shrink the building because of these variances that you're asking, we'll have less classes. If you increase as much as you could and ask more variances, you could put in more children. So the question is, the way I understood it, this is a charter school, so we could close down technically the Lakewood public school and have only your school because you're doing a great job. And the taxpayer it won't be a burden on the taxpayer because the state comes in and pays you guys, and we're all off the hook. Did I understand? I know it's not usually the way you ask a question, but this is how it came out. The second question that I have is, is this going to help out only the Lakewood school children, or you could accept children from all over New Jersey or from all over the county?
Okay, I'll answer two first.
Come to the mic.
Okay, I'm gonna, answer two first. What was two again?
Is it only Lakewood, or it's all over?
Okay, how a charter school works is the state approves my application, all right? And so in my application, I put in that this is a school for Lakewood students, citizens, all right? What happens is like right now, I have a waiting list for every grade level. So, we cannot accept more students than, what I put in the application. But there are times when I have a student that lives in Lakewood, they move to Toms River, they move to Jackson, we get to keep that student. If for any reason I run into a deficit of students, like I'm short, and someone from Jackson says, I want to go to Ocean Academy, by law, I'm allowed to accept them, okay?
But there's no burden on the Lakewood taxpayer, any student.
No, if I pick up a student for any reason from Howell, okay, I do have a student right now from Howell, okay? Howell has got to pay me. It comes, the money, the school districts are flow-throughs, and the money comes from the state to Howell to me.
So I thought that the state pays for it.
The state does, but they use local school districts for flow-throughs.
They take the money from them.
The state gives the money to the school district, and then the school district sends the check to Ocean Academy.
Yeah, but the Lakewood taxpayer is not increasing the money.
No. No.
So your school, every child in Lakewood.
Mr. Klein, this really has no bearing on the application, how it's funded, or whether it comes from the state, or whether it comes from anywhere else.
When an application comes in, and Brian gets up and says, this commercial building will give us great ratings, or it won't use so much of services, and therefore it's given a greater variances, you don't shut it out. But why?
I don't recall him saying that this was going to provide a rateable. Did he say that?
They do it all the time.
Yeah, so that has nothing to do with this application.
I know you want to get back at me today for something, but it's okay. It's okay. We understand each other.
But anyway, I'm limited, okay, I'm limited as to how many students I'm allowed to accept. If I wanted to expand the school, let's say a high school, or expand my grades over 60 students per grade, I would have to submit a special application to the state of New Jersey for that. And
Could you shut down the Lakewood public school system? I know that.
She has no authority to do that.
What?
I don't have rooms for 5,500.
Okay, thank you.
And I know that was a friendly joke, that's why I don't object to that.
Mr. Chairman, to say that I know John doesn't usually like it, and I know a lot of people in the audience, I raise a hand, just everyone who's here in support of the school, can kind of just raise their hand. Just to save having all these people come up to the mic, and to say, I know John doesn't like it, and I'm just...
Anybody
opposing the school?
Mr. Thacker and Mr. Chairman, there's case law where Judge Serpentelli admonished, polling the audience, but that's not what's going on here. That's in lieu of having 102 people coming up here and say, I support the application, so I don't have an issue with that.
Is there anybody else from the public who would like to be heard? Seeing no one, we'll close it to the public. I just want to make sure we hear you. Okay.
That is our application.
Okay. You want to speak? Okay. I'll open it up again to the public.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you'll give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your name.
Spell your name, please.
O-X-L-E-Y.
Okay.
I'm a kindergarten teacher at the charter school in Lakewood. I came and it's inception 2 years ago. We have such a group of dedicated teachers that are working in conditions where classrooms are small, we don't have the room. We do need to expand. Our administration is fantastic.
So you have dedicated parents too.
Parents, wonderful parents. I couldn't ask for better parents to work with. I really couldn't. So for us to have this opportunity to expand into a school and to give the children the opportunity to really succeed by dedicated teachers, parents, and administration, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're all looking for. And hopefully everything will come together with Tom's River, and we'll be in that school in 3 years. That's what we're looking forward to.
Thank you, and I wish you luck on the school.
Thank you.
Okay, now, I'm closing to the public now. I would ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it. I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Meyer, second, Mr. Sabin made the motion. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Fuentes?
Yes.
Mr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
Mr. Renner? Yes. Mr. Meyer?
Yes. And good luck
Thank
on
you.
I'm gonna be in 6th grade.
Yes, all in favor?